So if you have a problem at the bottom of the ocean, this next guy is someone you want on your team. Jim Elliott's going to be talking about non-floating oil detection, response case studies, and lessons learned. Maybe see some of the stuff that we've seen already, but with Jim's perspective on it. Jim's a chief operating officer of the Teichmann Group of companies, including T&T Salvage and T&T Subsea. He manages their worldwide marine salvage, heavy lift, commercial diving, and emergency response ops while simultaneously managing a couple of companies. He served as senior Coast Guard officer, incident commander, salvage master, commercial diver, and project manager for operations from the equator to the Arctic. He was an author on the API report and operations guide on submerged oil detection and recovery that I think Jackie mentioned, and I think Jordan pulled a chart out of with the salinity versus freshwater and when things float and sink. That document serves as a foundational document for the Coast Guard's non-floating oil detection and recovery policies. Jim, we are so glad to have you here. Take it away.
Thanks so much. Thanks for having me. Again, thanks to Jackie and Jordan for all the help over the years. I put my email address up front, because I'm always interested in learning something new about technology. I'm going to try to give you the where we are. Jackie mentioned it's difficult to recover this, but I think we've made some advances in detection. So I want to give you a case study in California. I'm typically the operations guy in these types of events. So I like this quote from the Coast Guard and NOAA that it does take a different type of group of people. And I encourage you, if you're hiring somebody to do this, that you find somebody that's been through this before, because you learn a lot of lessons.
Jim, sorry to interrupt you. As you're trailing off at the end of a sentence, your volume is dropping down. It seems like maybe you backed away from the computer a little bit.
Okay, is that better?
That's great.
Okay, perfect. So as we know, in 2016, 2017, the Coast Guard came out with OSRO classification for non-floating oil. And I believe there's about 10 of them in the US. And there's less than that when it comes to salvage and marine firefighting service providers. So it's a small group of people. And again, I encourage you to share knowledge and as we learn, as we go through this. Everybody that got this certification had to go through a process where they were reviewed by the Coast Guard and created a concept of operation. But those vary, and pretty much it's a small community. Again, like Jordan said, there's few of these and few folks have done them before. You mentioned the API report. Jackie was the lead for this report, but it did this guidance, this sunken oil detection recovery report in 2016 is the foundational document for the Coast Guard's classification system. So if you need some help, if you have one of these incidents, I encourage you to bring out these guides, and it gives you kind of the down and dirty review of what has worked in the past. So we talked about detection capabilities. This is the Coast Guard's list in their classification guideline for the non-floating oil. I'll mention sonar systems last. I'll go into a little bit more detail on that and give you a case study off the coast of California. I'm a commercial diver. I supervise commercial divers, and up front, historically divers were used for the most part for detecting sunken and submerged oil. I encourage you to make sure that you do these things safely and protect the diver. I think Rick Yelton sent me a note, and he was excited to see this photo. It's one of my favorite photos from an oil spill response. This is Morris J. Berman. This is what not to do with divers. Use them for sorbent material to recover oil. Encourage, again, make sure your divers are safe. Jackie mentioned there's for detection towed sorbents or VSORs or stationary sorbents which have been used several times. I think these are photos from the Athos 1 in the Delaware River spill, where I believe that one of the first times they were used. But it gives you a qualitative result, not really a quantitative, but just a go, no go indicator for detection. Underwater visualization is with ROVs. The bottom photo on the left is from the Deepwater Horizon near shore. So it was in one of those areas that Jackie was talking about where the oil collects right offshore. You can use 1 atmosphere systems. This is a company right up the coast in the state of Washington that has a submersible. So if you're interested, you have a large spill, you can go down and look at it yourself. Also, there's 1 atmosphere suits. Vancouver, Canada, I believe, is the Newtco company that has the Newt suits. So for sonar systems, as Jackie mentioned, there's great advances in multi-beam technology. There's acoustic Doppler current profilers, single beam, and then sub-bottom profilers, which are have come into. We've used those quite a bit, actually. You can put sonar systems just about on anything, including autonomous underwater vehicles, ROVs, and small boats, vessels of opportunity. We put together a system for deployment. So as part of our non-floating oil detection and recovery package for our OSRO classification, we put together a system that has a magnetometer to detect buried pipelines, a multi-beam system for water column analysis, and also bottom contours, the sub-bottom profiler for subsea analysis, and it has a good positioning and motion reference system for knowing exactly where you are within centimeters. And then the key advancement is the state of the art in processing. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. But I'll just give you some visuals of this. It's easily transportable, can go on an aircraft, and then be mobilized on a vessel opportunity. One of the cool things about this is very little calibration. So historically, these systems, you had quite a bit of installation time with calibration. And we have a system that we believe that has been proven to go and just go right on a vessel opportunity. So multi-beam has been around for decades. It's undergone several changes in technology, advancements in technology, and also the size and the price has been reduced over time. Again, the biggest takeaway, I think, is the computers and the software historically couldn't cope with the amount of data that would be involved, especially in the water column, and that has changed quite a bit. Jordan mentioned the DBL 152. One of the frustrations with this project was that we would send a team out to do a hydrographic survey, and it would take 3 days to get the results. And by the time that we had the results, the oil had moved, and we would have to go back out and try to find it again. So it was a frustrating process. And since then, I'm not a hydrographic surveyor, but I've been pursuing the best technology we can find to do this, to get better every time. So as you can see, the imagery is improved, 3D bathymetry. You can have the backscatter side scan, which was used on the Apex spill in the Mississippi River, and doing water column data. These are just some visualizations of what you can see. And a lot of this is real time. So again, historically, the water column data was really discarded because it overwhelmed the systems. I mean, you're dealing in gigabytes per minute, and there was historically a lack of computer power and storage capacity to deal with it and to do the processing, is my understanding. But today you can do real-time data processing with the software that's available. And this is some additional imagery. You can see how useful this would be during a response. Also, we now have a better understanding of subsurface oil plumes and the work that Jackie and others have done over the years, and that helps us kind of do an investigation of where the oil would be. Pretty famous project, the Taylor Energy site in the Gulf of Mexico, using sub-bottom profilers that can penetrate hundreds of feet below the seabed and distinguish between the sediments and oil layers. There's also other types of leak detection systems. I mean, the Coast Guard recognizes fluorescence, um, and then other groups have developed passive acoustic methods, towed systems, and others. And we try to, whenever we do one of these projects, we try to try out new technology to see what works, what doesn't, and what conditions it works in. And we have as we go through and we learn more, we compare these systems and find out the advantages and disadvantages of them. Jackie did a great job, and I think the API studies of, like she said, putting together easy to read tables that you can just walk through. So during a response, you don't have to recreate the wheel. Even operating under ice, you can use autonomous underwater vehicles. These systems can be put on even systems without an umbilical. So the case study I want to give you, this is off of Santa Barbara. We were called out to do an investigation of surface oiling, and initially they thought it was natural seeps. We did a unmanned aerial vehicle overflight to look at the sheening and put together our GO kit, our hydrographic survey kit for non-floating oil detection. First off, we did a magnetometer survey, and as you can see, there's some straight lines there. So it appears there might be some type of pipelines in the area. Did a multi-beam echo sounder survey, get the bottom bathymetry. This video will show you, if you can see this, is what's real time on board that the surveyors are seeing. So they're seeing an actual plume coming up through the water column. As they process the data, they found numerous plumes coming out. And as you can see, they can make the data look better, present it more visually pleasing. You can see the pipeline here leaking. So this, after they did the investigation, they went back and found that, this is what it looked like in 1906 or pre-1906 when this photo was taken, and what it looks like today. So pretty cool stuff when it comes to detection. A lot of advances there. Jackie mentioned recovery capabilities. I would say since 2005 timeframe, I'll give you a couple of case studies there. I haven't seen much advancements in recovery capabilities. Again, it's the same tools, dredges, diver-directed systems, using sorbent materials for polishing or finishing to get minor sheening, mechanical recovery, and I've seen agitation as far as injecting air using compressors, but I haven't seen much results with that. So suction dredges, the issue there is that it produces, as Jackie said, a lot of waste. You're pumping a lot of water. So we've designed, and we have a fabrication shop. We've actually built shallow water, small dredges to try to reduce the amount of waste material that's coming in. Diver directed systems are pretty good. This system was used on the Athos 1 in the Delaware River for a relatively small amount of oil, putting a decanting system on the surface to try to just separate out the oil that we collected. This is the 2005 mechanical recovery in the Mississippi River. I thought this system worked really well. It's a environmental clamshell, so it geo-references the clamshell on the bottom, so you can figure out how much the depth of the oil you have, and it will minimize again the amount of waste that you have. You can map it out and again geo-reference the clamshell, and it will just minimize the amount of waste produced. Sorbent materials have been used, not that efficient. This is some photos of containment and recovery from the Kalamazoo River spill, the Enbridge pipeline that Jordan mentioned. So there's a lot of work that goes into this. One of the lessons that I learned on a few of these spills is storage and treatment. Is how do you minimize the amount of waste, and then once you have that waste, how do you store that? So, for example, on a massive oil spill, you would need tank barges, and one of the projects we did was in Lake Erie. There was just not enough storage capacity in the region, so we had to build our own. This photo on the top is we had to build our own tank barge with frac tanks, and the cargo that we were pumping, or the product we were pumping, was high benzene, so we had to put in a vapor recovery system and an inert gas system. So it was a pretty complex operation, but we learned a lot of lessons there. Also, moving equipment around, the logistics required. For this non-floating oil classification, you have to be able to respond in 24 hours. So we designed our logistics system based on our salvage experience, our salvage system of moving equipment around the country and really around the world. One of the things to consider is the environmental conditions. You have to be able to work in all types of environmental conditions. And then what's interesting about the non-floating oil is there's no limitation on depth for the non-floating oil classification. So we found systems that you can go to all ocean depths if you so choose. Of course, it's going to increase the overall cost of the operation. I'll just close with a couple of case studies on recovery, and I mentioned them before. This was the Argo. It was a tank barge in Lake Erie that sank in 1937, and it still had a high benzene cargo on board. So one of the lessons in salvage is, if you ever have a sunken vessel, pipeline or whatever, is to keep it inside the vessel, because it's going to get a lot more difficult to recover it once it escapes. So this was an effort to keep that, to pump out the contaminants, the pollutants inside this barge. It was in about 55 feet of water, and we had to use contaminated water diving systems, and again, hot tap into the barge before pumping everything out. The other, again, is the Apex, the Mississippi River. This was a very viscous oil, heavy oil that Jordan mentioned, contained to a good area, and it allowed for a really efficient recovery operation with this environmental clamshell system and the georeference software. So, in conclusion, I'll give you some lessons. I've been very impressed over the last few years with the advancements in multi-beam technology and hydrographic survey technology. You can detect oil, gas, and fresh water, and salt water and fresh water. You can detect small volumes over long ranges. You can go pretty quickly, even up to 5 miles per hour when you're doing a survey, so you can cover large areas. You can locate leaks, and you can, even in certain circumstances, get volumes and flow rates. I know that was a big issue during Deepwater Horizon, but again, the technology continues to improve. It's a lot more cost effective to do these remote hydrographic surveys and using diver ROV support, because you minimize that equipment. And I encourage you, based on my experience, if you go into recovery operations, you need to focus on the safety, of course, and consider leveraging diverless recovery systems from a safety perspective. So that is that's my presentation, and I want to thank you again.
Yeah, thank you. That's really impressive. All the the scanning stuff, those images you presented seem like not just valuable to the response, but to communicate with stakeholders, the public, everybody else, because it really does tell a story, and now to be able to catch water column issues and potentially flow rates, that's a profound advancement. Yeah,
again, I think it's my hydrographic surveyor always tells me it's really the technology is improving, but it's really the software, the capacity to handle all that information, all that data, right? So,
well, let's hope we don't have to be down at the Marianas Trench trying to prove that to be true. Thank you, sir.
Sure, thank you.